Think you're not as good at math as those big-shot scientists? Don't beat yourself up honestly. You're probably not even as good at math or philosophy as a literal parrot. Specifically, we're talking about a gray parrot named Alex. This tiny bird's life story is about to give us a major reality check on animal intelligence and the actual bond we share with our feathered neighbors. Irene Pepperberg and Alex the parrot. Our story doesn't begin in a sterile laboratory filled with cutting-edge measuring equipment, nor does it start amidst the dense tropical rainforests of the Congo River Basin. Instead, it opens at a perfectly ordinary pet shop called Commonwealth in the suburbs of Chicago in June 1977. At that time, the scientific world remained a conservative fortress when it came to its way of thinking. Against this backdrop, Dr. Irene Pepperberg emerged as a dreamer and an outsider. She was a young scientist, fresh off earning her PhD in theoretical chemistry from the prestigious halls of Harvard University. However, deep within Irene, dry test tubes and chemical formulas no longer held their allure. She was haunted by a grand and, at the time, somewhat crazy question. Are we truly alone in the world of thought? Or do animals also possess a latent intelligence that humanity has never even begun to touch? The decision to abandon a promising career in chemistry to pivot toward animal cognition was an immense gamble. Irene's colleagues at the time looked at her with a mix of pity and concern. Some even bluntly suggested she was throwing her future away. To embark on this journey, one shrouded in skepticism, she needed a very specific partner. Irene turned her attention to the African gray parrot, Psittacus erythacus, a species renowned for its ability to mimic human speech, but dismissed by the scientific establishment as mere mindless mimickers. When she stepped into that pet store, Irene performed an act that was profoundly serious in its scientific intent. She asked the shop clerk to pick an African gray for her at random. She didn't want to hand-pick the bird that seemed the brightest or the one whistling the loudest. Irene wanted to eliminate selection bias entirely. She was determined to prove an ironclad point. If a perfectly ordinary parrot, chosen by chance, could learn complex concepts, then it would mean that higher cognitive ability was a hallmark of the species, not just a stroke of luck from owning a 1-in-a-million genius. And just like that, an African gray, only 12 to 13 months old, with wide, inquisitive eyes and that signature ash-gray plumage, entered her life. She named him Alex. In her formal scientific reports, this name was a dry, technical acronym for Avian Learning Experiment. But to Irene, Alex quickly became a living being with a formidable personality. Little did anyone know back then that, in those early days, Alex was anything but a compliant prodigy. This parrot possessed a stubborn streak and, at times, the sheer arrogance of a species built to live for decades. This partnership between a determined Harvard PhD and a tiny bird laid the groundwork for one of the greatest revolutions in the field of comparative psychology in the 20th century. To understand the sheer magnitude of this revolution, we have to look back at the scientific landscape of the 1970s. At that time, behaviorism was in its golden age, dominating every psychology lab across the country. Illustrious scholars like B.F. Skinner argued that all animal behavior could be explained through conditioned reflexes. According to them, a bird saying hello was simply programmed to believe that the sound would lead to a food reward. It was no different from pressing a button on a vending machine to get a soda, no thought, no understanding, and certainly no language. They called this phenomenon parroting, a derogatory term for meaningless imitation. Renowned linguists like Noam Chomsky went even further, asserting that language was an innate ability exclusive to humans thanks to our unique brain structure. Birds, with brains weighing only about 5 grams, roughly the size of a walnut, and lacking a neocortex, the supposed headquarters of higher-order thinking, were completely dismissed from any serious discussion about intelligence. Irene Pepperberg dared to stand up and challenge that entire establishment of prejudice. She believed that African gray parrots were capable of far more than just mimicking sounds. She was convinced they could grasp their underlying meaning. She realized that previous studies had failed because they had applied the wrong training methods. Instead of the forced conditioning favored by Skinner, Irene pioneered the model rival technique, an approach that was both more humane and far more effective. This method mirrored the way a human child acquires language, through social observation. Imagine a typical session with Alex. Irene wouldn't teach him directly. Instead, Alex would play the role of an observer. Irene would stand with another person, someone acting as both the model and the rival. Irene would hold up an object, say a piece of paper, and ask the assistant, "What's this?" If the assistant answered correctly, "Paper," Irene would shower them with praise and hand over the object as a reward. If they got it wrong, the assistant would be scolded and the object would be taken away. Alex, possessing the intense social instincts of a parrot, would start to feel a twinge of jealousy. He wanted that object, but more importantly, he wanted Irene's attention. He realized that to get what he wanted, he had to butt in and shout the correct answer before his rival could. This was a psychological breakthrough. Alex wasn't learning because he was hungry. He was learning because he wanted to be part of the community and express himself. This transformed the learning process from something forced into something voluntary, swinging open a magical door into Alex's mind. The early days at Purdue University were a breathless series of challenges. Irene faced a severe lack of funding because, at the time, absolutely no one believed in her project. She even had to dig into her own pockets just to buy food and toys for Alex. Meanwhile, Alex didn't exactly make things easy on her either. He frequently showed his boredom by hurling experimental objects onto the floor or screeching, "No!" whenever he wasn't in the mood for a lesson. Sometimes, Alex would even give wrong answers on purpose, a mischievous little game, just to see how Irene would react. Yet, it was precisely this rebellion that convinced Irene she was on the right track. A mindless biological machine wouldn't know how to feel bored or how to tease. Only a mind in motion would display such complex behavior. Their relationship gradually transcended the traditional boundaries between scientist and test subject, evolving into a true collaboration. Irene didn't view Alex as a mere specimen to be dissected for data. She saw him as a communicative partner. She spent hours every day simply talking to him, explaining the world around them. The magic truly began when Alex started grasping his first words, not as hollow, nonsensical sounds, but as tools to categorize reality. When Alex said paper, he wasn't just echoing a noise. He understood that this thin, white, terrible object was defined as paper. He began to realize that the world around him wasn't just a chaotic blur, but a collection of distinct attributes, colors, shapes, and materials. The fateful encounter between Irene and Alex was like a flash of light tearing through the darkness of ignorance. Irene provided Alex with a system of language, and in return, Alex gave Irene and the entire world a rare glimpse into the inner life of another species. Irene's unwavering patience and Alex's explosive curiosity forged a 30-year journey, one where every word Alex uttered was a stone cast into the still waters of scientific prejudice, creating ripples that permanently altered human perception of our place in nature. We had vastly underestimated our feathered friends, and Alex was preparing to teach humanity a lesson we would never forget. Once the basic concepts of naming matter had been mastered by Alex, Irene knew he was ready for a higher level of cognition. She decided to push his limits even further. venturing into a territory traditionally considered a forbidden zone for animals, the world of abstract mathematics and advanced logic. And there, Alex achieved things that would leave even the most optimistic scientists stunned. Alex and numbers. Once Alex had mastered the fundamentals of naming objects, Dr. Irene Pepperberg realized she was holding a diamond in the rough of cognition. She decided to take a bold step, introducing Alex to the world of mathematics and abstract logic fields, long considered the exclusive domain of humans and a few high-order primates. What created a complete distinction, a vast chasm separating Alex from any other mimicking animal, was his capacity for multidimensional categorization and synthetic reasoning. Imagine a classic experiment that once left the scientific community stunned when it appeared in peer-reviewed journals. Irene placed a cluttered tray in front of Alex, filled with objects of all sorts of attributes: red wooden squares, blue metal keys, yellow plastic balls, and even round sponges. In psychology, this is known as a parallel processing test. When Irene asked, "What's the same?" Alex didn't hesitate. He scanned the assortment, his tiny brain performing a series of lightning-fast comparisons, and answered, "Color." When she followed up with, "What's different?" he confidently declared, "Shape," to produce. Those two simple words. Alex's brain had to execute an incredibly complex information processing routine that even computers of that era struggled with. He had to comprehend the spoken question, scan the entire set of objects, identify individual attributes, color, shape, material, compare them in pairs or groups, and finally select the precise vocabulary to express the result of his reasoning. This was absolutely not a conditioned reflex of the CA, say B variety. This was high-level logical analysis, a true grasp of abstract concepts. But it was Alex's mathematical dance that truly forced the scientific community to tip their hats in admiration. Initially, he learned to count groups of objects from 1 to 6. He could look at a pile of sunflower seeds and state with pinpoint accuracy that there were 5. What was truly fascinating was that Alex didn't just count identical items. If you placed 2 keys and 3 wooden blocks before him and asked, "How many metal?" Alex would filter the wooden blocks out of his mind and answer 2. He understood the existence of subsets within a larger set. The real challenge came when Irene introduced the concept of addition. In a stunning experiment, she would place a certain number of items, say 2 candies under an opaque cup, then place 3 more under a second cup. She would briefly lift both cups to let Alex glimpse the quantities underneath before immediately covering them again. Then she would ask, "How many total?" After a few seconds of reflection, a pause Irene believed he was using to perform mental arithmetic, Alex would produce the correct result. 5. He performed the calculation without needing to see all the objects at once. This ability is equivalent to that of a human child, around 4 or 5 years old, an unprecedented feat for a creature previously dismissed as a mere mimic. The pinnacle of Alex's mathematical career was his self-directed discovery of the concept of zero. In human history, the concept of zero was a monumental leap forward, representing something that does not exist yet still holds a mathematical value. During a test regarding the differences between 2 groups of completely identical objects, when there was no difference to point out, Alex did not remain silent. He looked at Irene and uttered, "None." He had independently applied the word none, which he had previously used to indicate the absence of an object, to a mathematical concept of zero difference. This was ironclad evidence that Alex understood the nature of numbers as abstract entities rather than just counting tangible things. He didn't just count quantities. He understood the existence and non-existence of quantity itself, beyond the cold realm of numbers. Alex also exhibited a level of linguistic creativity that was almost hard to believe. He frequently spliced together known words to describe novel objects. One famous, fun fact occurred when Alex saw an apple for the first time. Since he hadn't been taught the word apple, he observed the fruit, tasted it, and dubbed it a Banerry. Irene later analyzed this as a portmanteau of banana, due to the apple's mealy, sweet internal texture, and cherry because of its red color and round shape. This kind of associative wordplay is a hallmark of high-level cognition, demonstrating Alex's ability to map the attributes of one object onto another to create a new concept. Alex's self-awareness also became a subject of intense debate among biologists. One day, while standing in front of a mirror, instead of attacking his reflection as most birds do, mistaking it for a rival, Alex tilted his head and examined himself intently. He looked at his feathers and suddenly asked Irene, "What color?" When Irene replied, "Gray," Alex repeated the word and committed it to memory forever. This marked the first time in scientific history that a non-human creature asked a question about its own physical characteristics. He wasn't just observing the world, he was curious about his own place within it. Of course, with great intelligence came a massive personality. Alex was no sunflower seed-powered computer. He had emotions, pride, and a wickedly sharp sense of humor. When tests became too simple or repetitive, Alex would show his boredom by intentionally giving the wrong answers. He might look at a red object and say, "green," then lock eyes with Irene just to see her reaction. If Irene persisted, he might go through every color he knew except the correct one, purely to tease the scientist. However, when Irene would start to look genuinely frustrated and begin packing up, Alex would lower his voice apologetically and say, "I'm sorry. Go back," essentially saying, "I'll be good, let's work." He was even known to bully the research interns, bossing them around with commands like, "Pick up the nut," or snidely telling them, "Say better," when they slipped up during the model rival exercises. One of the most impressive experiments involved his ability to categorize materials. Alex could distinguish between wood, metal, wool, plastic, and stone. He could even handle double-barreled questions that were incredibly difficult, such as, "What green object is made of metal?" To answer correctly, Alex had to pass the information through two cognitive filters simultaneously. His accuracy rate consistently stayed above 80%, completely debunking any theory that he was just guessing. Each answer was the result of a sophisticated neural process occurring within a brain region, called the nidopallium. Although bird brains lack a neocortex like ours, the neuronal density in Alex's nidopallium was exceptionally high, allowing him to process information with a speed and complexity comparable to primates. Over the course of 30 years, Alex mastered over 100 nouns, understood 7 colors and 5 basic shapes, and could count up to 6. But his legacy doesn't lie in those raw numbers. It lies in his capacity for transitive inference, the logical reasoning that if A is larger than B and B is larger than C, then A must be larger than C. He grasped spatial concepts like over, under, and in, and could use them to give directions to others. Alex's very existence forced the entire scientific community to tear up and rewrite the definitions of intelligence. The final night of Alex's life, the 6th of September, 2007, was a somber yet deeply human moment. Before Irene turned off the laboratory lights, Alex looked at her and said, "You be good. See you tomorrow. I love you." Those weren't just words he had mimicked from a TV show. They were the words he had used every single night for decades to connect with his only friend, mother, and colleague. His sudden death from heart failure left a void that can never be filled. But what Alex achieved shattered the wall between intelligent humans and instinctive animals. He was an ambassador, carrying the message that intelligence is a vast spectrum, and we, humanity, are just one small dot on that brilliant rainbow. The legacy and the future. The passing of Alex on a late summer night in 2007 was far more than a mere blip in the scientific news cycle. It was a high-voltage jolt to the collective psyche of the global academic community. The New York Times, one of the world's most prestigious newspapers, saw fit to grant him a formal obituary. This was an extraordinary honor, a rare recognition typically reserved for heads of state, legendary artists, or Nobel Prize-winning scholars. Why did the death of a gray parrot, weighing less than a pound, carry such staggering weight? The answer lies in the fact that Alex left behind more than just a string of numbers or an expansive vocabulary. He left a legacy that permanently reformatted humanity's cognitive operating system regarding the natural world. Before Alex appeared and spoke his mind, we, the human race, had lived too long in an era of absolute intellectual self-congratulation. We had constructed an ivory tower for ourselves, perching at the very apex of the cognitive pyramid. We clung to the belief that logical reasoning, complex language, and mathematical concepts were impenetrable biological firewalls that separated humans absolutely from the rest of the animal kingdom. We viewed animals as mere instinct-driven entities, reacting mechanically to external stimuli. But then came Alex. With his sturdy black beak and boundless curiosity, he used simple questions about colors and basic addition to dismantle the wall of prejudice, brick by brick. The greatest legacy Alex left behind was the complete and irreversible collapse of rigid behaviorism, thanks to Alex and Dr. Irene Pepperberg's extraordinary 30-year perseverance. The scientific community was forced to acknowledge a shocking truth. A bird's brain, though tiny and lacking the neocortex structure found in mammals, is still capable of complex cognitive processing. This blew the doors wide open for the field of comparative neuroscience. We began to realize that nature has more than one way to manufacture intelligence. While the primate brain evolved in width, the avian brain evolved in depth, packing an incredibly high density of neurons into a small space. It was Alex who pushed scientists to look deeper, leading to discoveries that crows can manufacture tools. Dolphins have signature whistles, effectively names to call one another, and primates possess the foundations of moral codes. Alex's impact radiated far beyond the laboratory walls, touching the realms of conservation and animal ethics. When Alex uttered, "I'm sorry," or asked, "What color?" about his own feathers, he forced us to redefine our concepts of soul and consciousness. We could no longer look at other creatures as mindless ornaments or mere resources to be exploited. Alex became an unofficial ambassador, a voice for the millions of silent beings out there. He reminded us that behind an animal's eyes lies not a hollow void, but an active mind, a distinct personality, and a flow of emotions that demand our respect. Research stemming from Alex's life led directly to the tightening of animal rights regulations, significantly improving care standards in laboratories and zoos worldwide. More importantly, it bolstered efforts to protect the natural habitats of African gray parrots, Alex's wild kin, who are severely threatened by the illegal pet trade. Every time someone sees Alex on screen and decides against buying a poached parrot from the rainforest, it is a victory for the legacy he left behind. In the fields of education and child psychology, the model rival technique, pioneered by Irene, sparked a minor revolution. Experts realized that if a parrot could acquire language through social interaction and observation, so could children. This method has since been adapted to support children with communication difficulties or those on the autism spectrum. Instead of rote, dry memorization, educators create a vibrant, interactive environment where the child acts first as an observer and then as a participant. Alex, in a roundabout and miraculous way, became a teacher not just for birds, but for human children, helping them open up and reconnect with the world around them. We are now beginning to find the confidence to ask profound philosophical questions. If a parrot can grasp the concept of zero, what messages are hidden within the songs of blue whales in the deep ocean? What do elephants communicate to one another through infrasonic vibrations traveling through the earth? Intelligence is no longer viewed as a private human club, but as a vast, vibrant spectrum where every living thing from the honeybee to the human contributes a unique cognitive shade to the grand mosaic of life. Today, in modern laboratories, Alex's successors like Griffin and Athena continue to write new chapters of history. Young researchers no longer face the harsh mockery or skepticism that Irene endured in the 70s. That path has been cleared and leveled by the footsteps of a small parrot with the soul of a philosopher. Alex taught humanity one final and perhaps most important lesson. We are never truly alone in this conscious universe. We share this blue planet with millions of other minds beings who suffer, play, love, and yearn to understand their world. Every time you look up at the sky and see a bird soar past, try to pause for a moment, listen to their song, and ask yourself, what are they thinking? That question is the eternal gift Alex left us. It is a boundless curiosity, coupled with a deep compassion for all forms of life. Alex may be gone biologically, but his spirit still sings through every textbook, every research paper on animal intelligence, and in the hearts of all who believe that the language of life is universal. Whether that language comes from human vocal cords or the black beak of a bird, its essence remains the same: connection. We owe Alex the gray parrot with the bright red tail feathers a sincere thank you. Thank you for helping humanity become humbler, more observant, and truly more human in how we treat Mother Nature. The story of the parrot who was better at math than some of us isn't a story of intellectual boasting. It is a hymn to a miraculous intersection. It is a bond between two different species, woven together by the threads of knowledge and unconditional love. And that, my friends, is the truest and most magnificent beauty of life on our planet. So, does the life and the extraordinary spirit of Alex the parrot move or inspire you? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to suggest any topics you're curious about, whether it's more secrets of the natural world or the amazing creatures all around us. We'll continue our journey in the next videos. Goodbye for now, and remember, you be good. See you tomorrow. I love you.